It is the Sports Wrap with Michael Kravetz. I am your host, Michael Kravetz, and on today's show, we got a pretty packed slate. We got Panthers basketball to talk, Penguins hockey, some Steelers news, Pirates news, and some NFL playoff coverage as well. But I'm going to start it off today's show with the Pitt Panthers. And last time we spoke, Pitt came off a horrible loss to Rutgers. And last Tuesday, going into Georgetown, top 20 team, this is a game Pitt needed to win. They couldn't go 0-3 in the Big East, and boy did they perform, probably one of their best games of the year. They blow out Georgetown at the Verizon Center, 73-48. They win by 25 points. My mistake, 73-45, 28-point win. They played suffocating defense on Georgetown. Georgetown, excuse me, they're not really a powerful offensive team. Except they do have a star in Otto Porter, but he only had 9 points. No one else reached double figures for the Hoyas. They shot 35% as a team, 65% from the free throw line. Pitt was able to get scoring from every single player. Zana led the way with 15, Woodall added 11, and they had 9 from J.J. Moore off the bench. They shot 55% as a team, which will win you most games. And they shot 70% at the free throw line, which is better than their team average. And, you know, they attempted 26 three-pointers against Rutgers last Saturday. This game they only attempted 8, and they were 5 of 8. So shot selection was key. They were making their open shots and rebounding. They won the rebounding battle 30-23. So that was huge. And in the paint, they outscored Georgetown 32-16. Adams only had 6 points, but he was a factor. This was the type of game that Pitt needs to play against Big East teams, because if they play this way, they're going to end up in the top half of the league. Now, yesterday, coming back home, they were taking on a Marquette team who was 2-0 in the Big East. They beat Connecticut, beat them in overtime, beat Georgetown by 1. Marquette's not really a high-scoring type team, just like Georgetown. They play great defense. In this game with Pitt, it was a very good one. Pitt was able to stay in it early just because they were making free throws. They were getting to the free throw line more often than none, and they were making one out of 2 of them. They were not shooting the ball well at all. I think a point in the second half, they were 11 of 30, which is just barely 32%. And pretty much Woodall leaving in the midway through the first half with a concussion hurt this team. But despite all that, Pitt and Marquette had a 57-54 lead with 10 seconds to go in the second half. Pitt had the ball. Robinson was driving it down. He missed a three-pointer, but it went off Marquette out of bounds. So Pitt had 1.2 seconds. Lamar Patterson got open at the top of the key and drained a three-pointer as time expired to send the game into overtime. But in overtime, Marquette dominated. Pitt, their first couple possessions, 2 missed shots and a turnover. Marquette was 13 of 17 from the free throw line in overtime. They outscored the Panthers 17-10 and won the game 74-67. In this game, Lamar Patterson stepped it up. He scored more than the starters combined. He had 22 points. 6 of 7 from three-point range, which was spectacular, which proves that he can't hesitate to take those shots because it's proven that he has a hot hand. Deron Johnson added 10 off the bench. James Robinson had 12. But other than that, they really didn't get much scoring from anyone. J.J. Moore came off the bench with 6, but Trey Woodall, he only played 4 minutes. He had to leave with a concussion, didn't return. Adams only had 4 points. The bottom line is they have to get him more touches. He is not shooting the ball enough, and what was disappointing in this game was that Devontae Gardner, the big man from Marquette, had his way with Adams. They didn't really go inside to him a lot. And that's the problem because the Big East has big men. And if Adams can't compete against the lower tier of big men in the Big East, how do you think he's going to compete against the likes of Jack Coley from Notre Dame and Gorgie Jen from Louisville? I thought the freshmen would be progressing further along than they have, but that's what happens with young players. And Talib Zona, who has been their best player on offense, he was 1 of 9 shooting. He missed a couple of easy shots during the game, ended up with 3 points. Not the type of production they need from him. They need more. And finishing as a team, 40% shooting, Marquette 48%. The difference is the free throw line. Pitt was 50% from the free throw line, 13 of 26. Marquette was 77%. You cannot win games when you go 50% from the free throw line. They were 13 of 26. If they would have just made 1 or 2 free throws, that three-pointer at the end of the game would have won them the game. It's something that Jamie Dixon's teams have always struggled with. He does not get enough criticism for it, I think. And, I mean, when Adams goes to the free throw line, he's shooting 33%. It's a miss virtually every time he's at the free throw stripe. And it's just bad. And even, like, their top-notch free throw shooters, Patterson, Moore, Woodall, they miss occasionally, too. So you don't feel comfortable with any player at the free throw line for this Pitt team. And that's going to haunt them if they can't get that fixed with the rest of the schedule. And Marquette is now 3-0. They're proven to be, I think they're going to make the tournament. They look like they're a solid, gritty team. The Big East, I think, will get 7 or 8 teams. But Pitt better find a way to fix this. They are 1-3 right now, 12th in the league. I know it's still early. There's still 14 games left in the Big East schedule. But they just got to get this figured out. They go on the road Wednesday at Villanova, who's 2-1. They're looking like they're a pretty good team. But Pitt's poor shooting, I mean, that's pretty much it. If they shoot horribly, it seems like they can't find their way. They can't find their footing to win this game. They had a chance, though. Went to overtime. That's what I'm saying. They just got outplayed in overtime. And you thought with that Patterson three-pointer it was going to give them some momentum, but it didn't. And their perimeter defense was poor in this game. Marquette was draining threes early in the first half. That's something they have to fix. I don't know if they're going to... They were playing some zone. I know Dixon likes man-to-man, but he switched from that last year because they didn't have good individual defenders. So I don't know if they're going to go more to zone in the coming weeks. The perimeter defense and the rebounding battle. If they out-rebound a team, Pitt's going to win. That's what they got to find a way to rebound. So coming down the stretch, they got at Villanova on Wednesday, home against Connecticut next Saturday. They got to start winning their home games. It's always good, though. Road wins are much better than home wins, but you don't win any games at home, you're not going to go very far. And, Oakland, the Oakland Zoo, intimidating crowd. The Peterson Event Center as a whole, not intimidating to away teams anymore. For the fact Cincinnati came in here and won, and Marquette came in here and won. And that goes with the losses last year to Wagner, Long Beach State. Pitt is 6-16, dating back to last year, and their last 22 Big East games. That is not good. That is really bad. They just have to find a way to get things fixed. Because guess what? They go 9-9 in the Big East, win a game, maybe 2 in the Big East tournament. That's going to be enough to get them in. This Big East Conference teams are beating up on each other. Pitt just has to get a couple wins against the upper echelon teams. They got one of them on the road at Georgetown. They have plenty more games to get things fixed. I don't know. This team is definitely better than last year. It's just you're going to get inconsistency from time to time with this team. And the thing that was missing in the Marquette game, really no team went on a big run. And Pitt was just they were down by 4 times, down by 2. They got the lead at one point in the second half, but then when the game was tied in overtime, that was it. And then Marquette pulled away. lot of people say this team's mediocre right now. I'd agree with that, but there's still plenty of time to fix that to make it to improve. So, I don't know. I see this shaking up where Pitt, they're going to get in the tournament, but I could see them getting in as a 10 seed, maybe at best, or maybe at worst. So, they just got to find a way to start winning home games because you need to win these home games against Big East teams, and they still have a lot of teams on their schedule that are playing worse than Pitt right now. So, we'll see how the rest of the Big East pans out for the Panthers. Now, though, I'd like to switch it over to the Penguins, where the schedule was just released this morning. 48-game schedule for the Penguins. They're going to open up in Philadelphia on the 19th, and then playing a back-to-back right away on the 20th in New York against the Rangers. There are 7 instances where the Penguins will be playing back-to-back games, and there is no longer a layoff than 3 days in between. So you're going to have 48 games in 98 days. So hockey's going to mean everything. Every single game will matter. No Western Conference teams. Every Eastern Conference team will be playing teams from their conference, Western Conference teams from their conference. The furthest the Penguins are going to have to travel is Winnipeg, so they don't got to worry about traveling out to the West Coast or whatnot. About 24 to 26 players are going to be appearing at camp. There's not going to be any preseason games. And I wrote down what I think the lines might look like next Saturday. Line 1, you got Kunitz, Crosby, Dupuis. Second line, Neal, Malkin, and I think Bo Bennett. He's coming up. I think he's going to impress people at camp, even though it's only about 5 days. But I think he's going to help. He's a good scoring winger. Put alongside Neal Malkin, that's going to be a heck of a line. Line 3, Matt Cook, Brandon Sutter, Tyler Kennedy. Your energy line, just replacing Stahl with Sutter. And then line 4, Tanner Glass, the free agent they acquired, Craig Adams, and I think Eric Tangretti. I think it's his time, even though it'll be on the fourth line. He's a big net front presence, just like Ryan Malone was. I think he's going to find his way in the lineup and produce. And with the defense, I think pair 1 will be Letang and Martin, pair 2, Orpik and Niskanen, and pair 3, just for right now, England and Lovejoy. And then there's people are saying Bilesma might keep 8 defensemen. If he does that, I could see maybe Simone Dupre, Brian Straight on the bench. But there's also a lot of other young defensemen they have that they could bring up, with the likes of Dylan Reese, Robert Bortuzzo, and even Joe Morrow, who they drafted last year. This team they're very young, and I think being young will help you in the 48-game season. And they have a lot of depth. And if a player's out injured for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, that's key in a 48-game season. So their depth, I think, will help them immensely. Looking at the other teams in the division, yes, this will be a tough division. I think every team has a chance in this division to make the playoffs. I can't see all 5 making it. I'd say either the Devils or the Islanders would be on the outside looking in. But I think Philly will be there, Penguins, and the Rangers. The Penguins are favorites to win the Cup with most people, and I'd agree. When you have Crosby healthy, you have Malkin healthy, you have Fleury, and you have James Neal into there, that's a pretty top-notch tandem. With top 3 line, the top 3 scorers that could be in the top 20 in the NHL, and then a number 1 goalie. The key, though, to this team, just like many Penguins seasons past, the power play. 2 years ago against Tampa Bay, we all know how the power play struggled. They lost the series. Who are they going to have on their power play? Right now, I don't know. You know, Crosby should be on there, and will Malkin be on there with him, or will they split him up so Malkin be on the power play too? Maybe it'll be Neal, Crosby, Malkin. Then they might have a forward play the point instead of a defenseman. These are things Bilesma's going to have to address. I'm going to like to see how it all shakes out. I definitely think the city will still go to the games. I mean, I know that the Consol Energy Centers are giving free concessions for a week, half off of team merchandise, a lot of promotions. There's going to be a week where fans can win prices. I think Penguins fans are always going to be there. They're excited, especially since the Steelers season ended so quickly, and now the Penguins are ready to go. The Penguins, for some ungodforsaken reason, they should get in the playoffs, even if they make it as an 8 seed. I mean, I don't see this team being below 500. I see them competing near the top. I could see them getting a 1 seed. I think they're going to get a 1 through 5 seed in the playoffs. I can't see them going any worse. Their schedule, every team's schedule is going to look like, oh boy, we got to play all these so many games in a amount of days. Well, every team has to deal with it. It's going to be a sprint to the finish. Every game matters. It's just exciting hockey, and I'm looking forward to it. Now we're going to move on to the Steelers, where, well, you wouldn't think there'd be that much news, but oh boy, was there indeed. Thursday, it was announced that Steelers running back and kick returner Chris Rainey was arrested and charged with a single count of misdemeanor simple battery after he allegedly slapped his girlfriend. And it only took the Steelers, Kevin Colbert, about 6 to 7 hours after that they decided to cut Chris Rainey. So he is no longer with the team, and I'm a little surprised, just because I thought Rainey was, he was their only good kick returner, I thought. They tried to use him in the offense, he didn't really work, but I was just a little surprised that they would do it this quickly. Of course, Rainey had problems in the past. He sent a text to a woman saying time to die. He had his troubles when he was in high school. The reason the Steelers drafted him, though, was because his connection with Florida and the Pouncey brothers. So they thought, yeah, he might be a risk, but he might be a risk worth willing to take, and it backfired because they didn't get out of what they wanted from him in the past season. Offensively, they tried to force feed him with the short passing game, running game. He really didn't do much. Kick returning, he had some good returns, but nothing that amounted to being a superstar on special teams. And this goes into question with now the types of players that the Steelers have drafted. Mike Adams he failed the marijuana test. So far, I think he's the least troublemaker of the ones they've drafted. Alameda Te'amu, the incident there. You hope that the Colbert will now, and the rest of the Steelers management, they're going to draft differently. Don't pick players that have had problems in the past with the law. And now the question is, why is Te'amu still on the roster? I think what he did was worse than what Rainey did. I don't expect Te'amu to be here next year because a lot of people don't see him as a successor anymore as Casey Anthony, Steve McClendon. But I think the Steelers said enough was enough. They couldn't deal with this anymore. So hopefully this is a change of pace for them what we've seen lately, and they start drafting players that have not had problems in the past. And if stuff happens, they're not going to take any crap. They'll either fine people, a hefty amount, suspend them, or even kick them off the team if what they do is that bad. So hopefully with this next draft, we'll see a difference with the type of players that they look to target. And now I'm going to just talk a little bit about some Pirate moves. They traded for Jean-Mar Gomez, a middle reliever from the Cleveland Indians. They got rid of a minor leaguer, Quincy Lattimore. And this Jean-Mar Gomez, he's 24. He's pitched in the majors. They think he's going to be competing for a bullpen spot. An outside chance at maybe the 5th spot on the pitching staff. I mean, I don't know. He seems like he might be a decent pickup. They didn't really trade much for him, so we'll see how that pans out. A lot of people are saying, though, another no-name player, so we'll see how he turns out. And another big news with the Pirates, the Liriano trade, or my mistake, the Liriano signing. They signed Liriano for a 2-year deal worth $12.75 million. That is now dissolved for the time being because Liriano hurt his non-throwing hand during the holidays. So that trade now is dissolved, meaning the money now is still back with the Pirates. They still want to try and work out that signing him, but if he's not going to perform at the level that you thought he was when he was healthy, why would you waste the money on him? So with him not being here for now, that means McPherson and Locke might be the other two pitchers rounding out the rotation until Charlie Morton comes back. And I think that's going to be a bad mistake because both did not look good last year when the team was in the midst of a playoff race. I think Jeff Locke is the worst of the two. I would have been happy if McPherson got the 5th spot with Ariano being number 4. So I don't know if they're going to try and sign another starting pitcher. I don't see that happening. Jeff Carson's is still out there though, but you wonder if he would even come back, depending on what they would offer him. So with the rotation, I mean, you still have the top 3 with Burnett, McDonald, and Rodriguez. The last 2 you don't know. So I felt good with Liriano being in there, but if he's not, it's going to be iffy on this team. Because you want to have a chance to win every game, and if you have Locke and McPherson both in there, those are games where, as a fan, you should feel, oh no, I mean, this is going to be tough to get a win with these pitchers pitching. I thought McPherson would be a good number 5, but as a number 4, don't know yet. And with Locke, I mean, he didn't really pitch that well last year either. But moving on now to our final topic of the show, which is the NFL playoffs. Last week, wildcard games on Saturday were not that exciting. Cincinnati at Houston was not for the faint of heart, so to speak, for most fans wanting to see an exciting game. Both teams really looked sloppy. Bengals looked worse. And Houston was able to get that win because of their defense, 19-13. And then Green Bay taking on Minnesota. It was announced before the game that Christian Ponder was inactive. He was injured, so Joe Webb, who hadn't played all year, was in. Packers dominated the game with their defense. They won 24-10. Last Sunday, Ray Lewis, final home game, taking on the Colts, and the Ravens pretty much did what they needed to do. The defense played spectacular. The Colts couldn't get anything on offense. Ravens won the game 24-9. And then Seattle was going up against Washington. RG3, Russell Wilson. Redskins had a 14-0 lead, and at that point I thought, oh, the Redskins are going to trash him. But then RG3 hurt his knee, and they really couldn't do much else on offense. Seattle came back with Russell Wilson leading the tandem of him and Lynch. They win the game 24-14. So yesterday, the first of the divisional games, the 4:30 game was Baltimore at Denver, and boy was this an exciting game. It was 35-28. Less than a minute to go. Joe Flacco, a 70-yard touchdown pass to Jacoby Jones to tie the game 35-35, send it into overtime. After first full overtime, when no points were scored, goes to second overtime. Baltimore wins it on Justin Tucker's 47-yard field goal in an amazing win. Everyone had Denver pegged in to pretty much make the Super Bowl. Baltimore comes in with a huge upset, and the Ray Lewis party continues. He will be playing another game in the AFC Championship game. The Ravens are playing there for the 2nd consecutive year. Manning, couple bad interceptions. The one at the end of the first overtime was huge. He ran outside of the pocket. He threw it across the field. He was scrambling out to the right side, threw it back over to the middle of the field. It was badly underthrown. And that's what cost him the season. So Baltimore will now travel to the winner of the Houston-New England game. And if New England wins, it'll be a rematch of last year. And I know both teams are going to be ready for that. So I think New England's going to take care of Houston. And then New England-Baltimore, it's going to be a great game. But I think New England is just too much at home. As much as everyone gets caught up in the hoopla of Ray Lewis, I don't think Baltimore has enough. And if they do make it, boy, then they're probably going to win the Super Bowl. And in the NFC game, the night game last night, it was Green Bay at San Francisco, rematch of Week 1. And San Francisco pretty much won the game with their offense. Colin Kaepernick, 181 yards rushing, the most ever for a quarterback, most amount of rushing yards in a game. The Green Bay Packers, their offense could never really get any momentum, consistent momentum going. There were big drops by Greg Jennings. Rodgers didn't look sharp at all. And San Francisco's defense played a little bit better than the Packers' defense. So Seattle will now be waiting the winner of the Atlanta-Seattle game in Atlanta. And if Atlanta wins, the championship game will be played there. And if Seattle wins, it'll be played in San Francisco. This game, it's a toss-up. Atlanta is the number 1 seed. A lot of people are... Matt Ryan, in the past, they've failed to win in the playoffs. Seattle is probably the hottest team in the NFL right now. And I could see this game going either way. I think Atlanta's, though, is going to get it done just because of the home field. And Matt Ryan doesn't lose at home. I know they lost 2 years ago at home against the Packers in the first round of the playoffs. Or in the divisional round. But I think this team's a lot better. Julio Jones, Roddy White, Michael Turner. Their defense is a lot better. I think Atlanta's going to get the win. Hopefully the games are exciting as they were yesterday. It's going to be a fun day of NFL. So that'll do it, though, for today's show. And for next week's slate, going to talk about the Pitt games at Villanova, home against Connecticut. Any more Pirate news? Any more Steeler news? What were the outcomes of the divisional games? Probably doing the show Sunday, so I'll be previewing the AFC and NFC championship games. And probably will be able to do the show after the Penguins' second game against the Rangers, so we'll talk about the first 2 games, what the lines look like, how the power play, penalty kill, what they look like. So it should be a fun show next week. I'm excited. Penguins are starting up. We're in the midst of Big East play for Pitt. Getting closer to the Super Bowl. It's going to be a fun couple months coming up here in the sports world. So signing off, you just listened to the Sports Wrap.